Good evening from Vietnam. Thanks a lot for spending your early morning to join our Inside Sharing Show and share your stories with our audience of the program. From this part of the world, we really appreciate that, Julie.
I am thrilled to be with you, Ha. Thanks for making time.
And Julie, we really admire all the works that you do, and that's why I invited you to join the show. And in our culture, it's going to be a great honor for our audience if we can have you to help us to share a little bit about who you are and the work that you do. Would you please do that for us?
Absolutely. Just at a very high level, I'm Julie Winkle Giulioni. I reside in Los Angeles, California,
Mm.
and I've had the pleasure over the course of my career to work deeply in the leadership development and the career development space.
Mm.
And so today, I'm a wife and a mom of two grown kids, and I have my own business. I write and speak, train, and consult around this topic of, how can we help people to tap the best that they have to offer, to grow and to be, deeply engaged and satisfied with the work that they do as they contribute to an organization's overall mission.
Wow. I always have a very high appreciation for the professional people, who help people to grow. And and we're gonna examine your journey together tonight. Okay. When I was young, I wanted to become an astronaut. I really love, imagine in my head that I'm gonna be wearing those astronaut jumpsuit and jumping in some other planets, not just this Earth, right? But then life takes me to a different directions, and I'm now doing something totally not in line with being an astronaut when I was young and wanting to do. So, so when you were young, what did you dream about the future of yourself, and what did you want to do back then, though?
Well, like many children, I had, a whole host of aspirations. At one point, I wanted to be a drum major in a band. And so I perfected my baton twirling skills. That probably was age 4. At 5 or 6, I had gone back to visit my grandparents who worked in an old fashioned department store, and I got to learn how to drive the mechanical elevator in that store. The elevator operator there took me under her wing and taught me how to drive it. And so, for my week of vacationing with my grandparents, I was there driving this elevator up, and you're so young you don't even know what I'm talking about, but there was a time when you didn't just push the button, when there was a person in there who drove it up and down.
Mm.
I learned how to do that, so I decided I was going to be a professional elevator operator when I was 5 or 6. um, for a long time, I thought I wanted to go into medicine. And to be honest with you, there are times when I think about that today. I really wanted to be a pediatrician
Mm.
for probably most of until I was about 17 or 18. Loved and fascinated by the magic of the human body, and just,
Mm.
what we're able to do without even thinking about it. Um, and and through some networking, friends, parents, and whatnot, I got a more realistic preview of what the lifestyle of that kind of a profession would be. And I was concerned that that didn't comport with my bigger picture
Mm.
of, wanting to make sure that I had a family and balance and that sort of thing. And so at that point, probably at just about the point where I needed to be making those decisions,
Mm.
I was a little bit open-ended about what I wanted to do, and kind of shifted, thought maybe the foreign diplomatic corps, and ultimately settled in on marketing,
Oh.
because that was a good sort of general purpose skill and degree that would serve me no matter what I did. And that was ultimately how I kind of moved forward into marketing and business.
Ah. And then, so how's the journey after finish your school for in marketing, and how the career start from there? Can you share with us?
Yeah, so in parallel with all of the school stuff, I started working when I was about 14 or so,
Mm.
teaching modeling and charm to children. And it's a rather interesting start to one's career. But I have to tell you, Ha, it was probably the most formative of all my early experiences in terms of pointing me in a direction that I was going to love and that I was going to end up pursuing. And so from the age of 14, I became really interested in how people learn. You know, how do you capture someone's attention? How do you deliver a message in a way that makes sense? How do you tap what matters to them and create a sense of motivation that's going to cause people to behave differently? I got to learn all of that, experiment with all of that on little people, on children, under 10 years old. And every day today, the work that I do is informed by that because we all learn, we're motivated, our ambitions are tapped in very similar ways. And so anyway, in parallel with the school stuff was what seemed like unrelated, work-related activity. So I parlayed my teaching of modeling and charm to children into teaching high school and teaching fashion-related subjects and vocational-related subjects at high school. Ultimately, I turned that into being a professor at a university and a department chair. So my students just kind of grew up from children to high school to college. Always using some of those fundamental things that I learned early on about, how do we inspire people to learn and change? And then so ultimately, what I really wanted to do was to pivot and see how those more academic applications of those skills could be used in a corporate setting. So I got my first corporate training job, and then the rest is history.
Well, Julie, the age of 14, we are not yet mature. We're still a very young age man, at 14, right? And a lot of works back then were just like, just work, right? So we do the work, we get paid, we, put the hour in. Then you got really fascinated about the works and inspire, and then how you're gonna be connecting with people at the age of 14. So you took the job really serious and have the curiosity of connecting the dot and learn how to how to work better and how to help them better. Why? What happened back then? Why?
Well, I think it's a couple of things that probably conspired, huh?
Ah.
I was a pretty serious kid. I was an old soul and kind of took things pretty seriously. So I brought that temperament to the mix. But I grew up with a dad who had this incredible work ethic. I have so much respect for my father. He was a printer and aspired to offer to my brother and myself a life, beyond what he had enjoyed, which was pretty modest. And so as a printer, he couldn't make enough money to really provide, in the kind of environment that he wanted. And so my dad, for most of the time I was growing up, he worked two full-time jobs in order to be able to give us the life that he and my mom wanted for us. And so I don't know, even as a young kid, there was something in my soul that understood the sacrifice that he was making and really respected the deep work ethic that this man was able to bring to his 16-hour days. I mean, I'll never complain about a long day after seeing what my dad went through. And so I think it was those two things, kind of being serious, being curious, seeing a real deep commitment to, one's profession. And so it was interesting. I loved my work. I always found my work to be more interesting than my school. That was really where I was learning the stuff I was going to use on a regular basis. And so it was always kind of a competition. I worked all the way, through the educational process because I got so much joy and pleasure and development out of the work that I got to do.
Wow. Uh, and at that time, at the 14 years old, you teaching and you watching the kids to learn. What was the observation that back then that interested in you and that keep you get into that direction further? Can you share?
Yeah, it was just, how it was a little bit like a puzzle.
Mm,
How do you put these pieces of the puzzle together? We had these kids whose
mm,
parents wanted them to learn how to behave, how to sit properly and eat at the table with a proper fork and that sort of thing.
mm,
Um, and they weren't so interested in doing that.
mm,
That they had other plans for their Saturday afternoon. And so the challenge was always to figure out how could you connect with the person,
mm,
even a small person, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and make what we were talking about relevant and
mm,
fun. So it was really a bit of a puzzle to figure out what could I bring
mm,
that would capture their imagination and
mm.
their attention long enough to let it seep in so they could go home and demonstrate these new skills.
Wow.
And even today, I have to say that's part of the joy and the excitement of the work that I get to do every day is working with individuals, working with groups, and figuring out, where is the motivation? Where is that nugget that I can connect to
Mm,
where someone's going to say, okay, I get why this is important. And
mm.
I'm going to be willing to put some energy into learning, practicing, performing, demonstrating something different.
Wow. Wow. I always love how all the dogs connected, right? And then now with the work that you do, and then when we look back that the seriousness, the curiosity that you put in on teaching the kids and caring for the usability of what you teach so that they can be applied and at home. So and when all the dogs connected is so beautiful. And I'll go to the next question is regarding to a story I want to share. So we have a lot of executive friends, okay, and by the time that they got retired, two things that they share in common, which is something that they're not happy about. First is they could have studied their own company when they were younger, and they did not do that. The second is they wanted to write a book and share their journey, their stories, and their experience and everything, and they're yet doing that also. So we always trying to encourage them to. It's never late. You can start anytime, right? Julie, you start all of that very early. So you got a career very successful in the corporate level, and one day, one beautiful day, you decided to do something differently, and that's not easy to drop everything, where it's stable, where it's comfortable, to start up something that is new and scary. What courageous did you give to yourself back then?
Yeah, I don't know if it's courage or being silly some days, but I haven't looked back. I remember it's interesting. Somebody told me when I announced that I was leaving, they
Hmm.
said, you're trading the illusion of security for the illusion of freedom. And I didn't quite get it at the time, but I do get it now for sure. So at the time, I had two young children.
Hmm.
And, as I mentioned earlier, I knew from a really young age that I wanted to be a wife and a mom and have a family and a community around me.
Hmm.
And I found that with the travel that I was doing, with the intensity of the work, I wasn't able to bring my full self to that role.
Oh.
And yet I loved the work that I did, and so my sense of a compromise was, let's go out, continue to do this work, maybe in a smaller scale, so I would get the satisfaction and the
Hmm.
engagement and the mental stimulation and stuff.
Hmm.
But I'd be able to dedicate that time and energy to my family, and so it was a really ideal time to shift and do that. I had visions of, 4-day work weeks and 3-day weekends. And of course, anyone who started their own business knows that you do not work less under those circumstances. You work more. But it's a different energy when you're doing it for yourself, and it's a different cadence, and it has provided over the last 22 years a level of flexibility to be able to have that full life and be able to lean into different dimensions of it more and less throughout that period of time. So I feel really enriched as a result of the choices that we made then.
Wow. Um, that is a huge thing you share, because a lot of us go into work and cannot let go of what we have, right? And then sometimes we trade out the burning inside of us, whatever that our values or something like that. We have to compromise. You get the strength and the courage to not compromising and then creating something in a different direction. And also leading the 4-day work week also, it just came out quite new in the last couple of years, right? Just the last year
Oh
or so.
no! Oh, I know.
Well, and as an entrepreneur myself, I also enjoy creating, because when we working for our own company, then the world, we can create whatever we think is best for our clients, our friends, our people, our community, the way we wanted to do it, without like limitation, without boundaries. So and then again, it's always love to hear your sharing about your first clients, because do you still remember the first client that you started to serve, and how it felt? Can you share with us?
I do. I do. It was a woman I had known that I had worked with previously in my previous organization. She was with a new organization, and I was so proud that she had brought me in to do a training design project, and got the project done and turned it over, and the company promptly went bankrupt.
Oh,
Never got paid for my first project. And I
sorry.
was thinking, oh my gosh, is this an omen? Is the universe trying to tell me, don't do this? So I held my breath and did my second project and got paid. So I figured the universe was saying it's okay. But yeah, that was a rather scary start to my consulting practice.
Mhm. So, the I'm sorry for the first experience, but see, in our Eastern culture, we say that when if something happened at the very first time, it's not in the way that we want to. It's a sign for it's going to be a successful journey. And if everything is
Mhm.
so smooth at the beginning, then we are not ready for all the challenges and all the uncertainties that come after. So let's.
I like that, huh? And you're right. Like after that, I could handle anything. Billing delays, negotiating, anything is better than bankruptcy.
And then how about the journey of writing? Why did you decide to write and then increase your ability to influence to the massive number of people?
The writing journey is a really interesting one.
Mm.
And you talked about in retrospect, all the dots connect, and it's kind of this beautiful tapestry that you've got. In the moment, it did not connect for me. So I had been, my last internal job, I was the director of product development for a large training company.
Mm.
And so a lot of the work that I've done over the last 22 years is working with training companies to help them develop their products that they
Mm.
sell around the world. And so I was doing a project with a client, Beverly Kay, who has a training company.
Mm.
We were helping her rethink her flagship program. And in the background on the side, her publisher, with whom she had published several really successful books, was saying, hey, Bev, it's time for you to write another book. And
Mm.
so it was just a happy coincidence that I was there working with her. She needed to write another book, and she asked if I would be willing to co-author.
Oh.
And it was a really funny experience because I thought, well, I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. I mean, how am I going to go about doing this? And again, in retrospect, I've been writing since I began the training process. I wrote curriculum, I wrote materials, I wrote facilitator's guide, I wrote articles, and it just didn't even occur to me that I was a writer. So gratefully I had that experience once I connected the dots and was able to bring that to our first book, my first book with Bev, which was Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. And it was interesting. So she asked me to do this, and I thought, cool, sure. How hard can that be? Which, the answer to that came pretty quickly. But it was kind of a bucket list sort of thing, kind of a cool thing to check off your list of things you've done in your life. And about halfway through, I realized, wow, this is profound. This is a body of work that's going to change my practice. And I was right. That book has literally taken me around the world, talking with organizations, leaders, individuals about the importance of career development. And so that was just a really fun, joyful process, and made easier by the door being opened, of course, by a very seasoned author like Beverly Kay. And so I've been working in that space. So that book gave me the opportunity to really dive very deeply into the career development space. And then over the last 10 years of working with Help Them Grow, I was conducting field research that ultimately became the basis of the latest book that came out this year, which is Promotions Are So Yesterday.
Wow, and we're really gonna talk about that. But allow me to bring back the moment that you consult with Beverly Kay, right? Beverly Kay, and she invited you to the new journey, right? And to me, life is so beautiful because we have so many angels around us, right? So, and it's all coming from the word care to me, because you care in when you do the service for her, and she sees it within you. So she invites you to join, and that opened a new path that we never imagined that we could ever do that, even if we've been doing that for a long time, right, Julie?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way you said that, the angels around us, because you're so right. When we when we invest in others, when we care about others, it just naturally has to come back. And I like thinking of it in the form of angels.
Absolutely. Now we're going to talk about the newest book that you wrote solo, all right? And Promotion I saw yesterday. And like earlier, before this conversation, I shared with you that we also had a lot of debates about promotions, and of course we see a lot of things not working within the promotional system within organizations. And but then for a very long time, like growing the career ladder, getting a little bit more benefits is considered as promotion. And it's when you coined the term promotion so yesterday, what happened? Why?
Well, yeah, first of all, I have to credit the title to my publicist. And we were really struggling with what to call this book, because the concept is the world has changed. We've changed as individuals. Organizations have changed. And career development hasn't. It's still stuck back in the 20th century. And how do you update that? How do you sync up what people really want out of their work with what's possible in today's organizations? Well, that makes for a very long title that's not going to fit on the cover of a book. And so my publicist and I were talking one day, and I said, I'm just really struggling. We're throwing things around. And she said, well, I was talking to a friend and, just kind of spitballing a little bit. And she wanted to know what the concept was. And I said, well, basically, Julie's just saying promotions are so yesterday. And we both sort of stopped and looked at each other and went, That's it. That is it. And so I never thought, though, that the publisher would actually go for it. So I was shocked when I pitched it along with a couple of other titles to the publisher, and they went with the cheeky, provocative one. But it really does, in a cheeky and provocative way, it hits the high note that if we're going to continue to define career development exclusively by promotions, we're going to be stuck in an old model, and we're going to continue to feel dissatisfied as individuals and create a disempowered, dissatisfied, disengaged workforce. And so this is really the opportunity to expand our definition beyond promotions and look beyond that next role or move for the organic growth that's available to us every single day.
I want to go a little bit further to that. Since when the idea of getting that out to writing about that came up in your head, though?
I think it's been brewing since shortly after the first book came out. Because one of the things, the purpose of the first book, it really focused on career conversations, how we could help managers have richer, more meaningful, more iterative, and ongoing conversations. And what I heard time and time again was the concern that managers had. Even when we gave them some great conversational skills and tools and resources, in the back of their minds, they were still worried about having this conversation, because what they were imagining was that everybody they were talking to wanted that promotion. And of course, those are few and far between. And so a lot of managers didn't even want to open the door to the conversation because they didn't want to have to say no and disappoint people. At the same time, though, as I was talking to individuals about what their careers meant to them, it didn't square. People, when you ask them what career means, they talk about, I want to express myself. I want to share my talents. I want to make a difference. I want to make deep and meaningful connections. I want to have the ability to learn and grow. I want to feel greater confidence in my ability. I want to be happy and have meaning. I mean, when people talk about what career means, it's big and bold and juicy and multifaceted. And so why then do we have this rub up against promotion? So it's interesting. What we want from our careers, it's sort of out of sync or bumps up against those deeply kind of embedded mindsets that exist about, how we grow is through promotion. And so it became really obvious to me as I was talking to folks that there were actually many other ways that people wanted to grow that were more possible and doable, in an organization today. And so that's where my multidimensional career framework started to emerge as I saw those patterns and saw those opportunities for collaboration between managers and employees, for managers to be able to say yes, and for employees to be able to grow, between and besides and beyond those promotions.
So the old way of, like a career upgrade in terms of, titles and benefits give us so little leeway to deal with the employees, and a lot of time we get into the conversation and getting out is not happy because the employee asking for something that as a manager, as a leader, we are not capable or not able to deliver. So in your new frameworks, you say that there are many other tools, many other ways that we can use creatively to talk to the employee and create a career development for them that can be fulfilling for them, and everybody's happy. Can you share what is that promotion, what is that for today though?
Yes. So the promotional dimension, or climbing the corporate ladder, it's not going to go away, despite the title of the book. Promotions are going to be today and tomorrow. They're part of the workplace landscape, but they're only one part. And I've identified 7 other dimensions that are also really meaningful to people. So we can grow through contribution, through developing greater competence. We can grow through connection. We can grow our confidence. We can grow through challenge. We can grow our contentment. We can grow through greater choice. And then, of course, there's the climb. And they all just happen to start with the letter C, which is a tidy way to remember it. But what distinguishes these other dimensions, these other 7 dimensions from the climb, is that these other dimensions are within the control of managers and employees to affect. You know, promotions, those are out of our sphere of influence for the most part. But helping somebody to grow greater skills, make more connections, build more confidence, find greater ease, balance, meaning, that's something that managers and employees can do together. And in so doing, they can invite development right into the envelope of the current role and let people grow in the here and now rather than waiting for some, you know, possible promotion that might or might not ever come.
But if our organization has been designed, the promotions was so yesterday also in the system that we've been developing organizations, right? So our managers, our supervisor only know, you know, to communicate with the employees on the career ladder with promotions. With the 7 C's that you introduced, I put it as 7 C because all the C's in there, right? How can we help them to start think creatively about, you know, another dimensions, all these new dimensions of promotion, so that they can start to communicate with the employees and get the buy-ins though?
Yeah. And that was really my purpose in writing the book, was to, in as simple and concrete a way as possible, to lay this out and help managers develop a sense of confidence and trust in the fact that there really are alternatives, things they can say yes to, that are really doable. At the same time, so managers are part of the equation here. We need to equip them with this new framework, with this new mindset, with tools and strategies for helping people to develop in each of these dimensions. But we also have to help the employee, because as employees, we've been conditioned to evaluate our success in our careers. It's, you know, when was my last promotion? When is my next move in play and everything? So we have to help the employee also kind of remember or get back in touch with what their careers mean to them and how they want to express that. And so we developed a self-assessment that people can take. There's a copy in the book. There's a version of it online that helps the individual to get in touch with which of these dimensions are most interesting to me at any given time, so that managers and employees can have a really rich conversation. And what I'll tell you, Ha, is when I developed the framework and these 7 alternative C's, I knew that they would resonate for people because it came from my field research and my conversations with people. What I wasn't sure of was if people had to rank these things. Yeah, contribution is important, but really, if you had to rank it, which is more important, climb or contribution? I wasn't sure, you know, where that would all lie. So we did some research, some global research, around 800 folks worldwide, and asked them to go through that exercise. And the results that came back blew me away, and they continue to blow me away. What we found was, in aggregate, employees across the board were more interested in all those other 7 C's than climbing the corporate ladder. Climb was ranked dead last in aggregate. Contribution was 1, competence was 2, connection, and so on. But climb was dead last. And for me, that was just, you know, I had to rub my eyes a few times and look at it, because it was so counterintuitive. Maybe not counterintuitive, counter to what so many of us as managers have believed for so long. And so it's a really helpful message to managers. And the self-assessment is a helpful tool for employees to learn a little bit about themselves and this framework and expand their thinking. So then when managers and employees come together, they can have a really rich conversation that leads to doable action.
Wonderful. I think that a lot of, one of the cause to our employees unhappy was because of the promotional system was designed in an old-fashioned way. And it's been working in the past, but it has a lot of issues along the way. And for a very long time, everybody was struggling to figure out a better way, but an alternative one. So your 7C model definitely give a lot more way for companies and leaders to individualize the growth that fits with each person. What you want may be different than what I want, and then if you can help me to accomplish what I want, to me it makes me feel happier. And then the engagement and everything that works will be a lot different, right? So
Yes.
thanks for put a lot of thoughts in creating this and help organization to reinventing the culture of promotion or a culture of growing people, Julie. Okay.
My pleasure. It's been a joy to create the model, but it's been even more joyful, I have to say, to work with managers
Mm,
and just see the anxiety sort of dissipate.
mm,
It's like, okay, there is something I can do. There is something I can say yes to. There is a way, to your point, that we can help people grow that'll lead to the job satisfaction, the engagement, the
mm.
discretionary effort, and all the business outcomes that come from that. So it's a real synergistic win-win.
Yep, yep. And Julie, I always like to ask this question, okay? Because my wife and I is in the quest of helping people to improve their ability to think. Because every time we look around us, it seems like people are less serious about thinking, or their ability to think is not increasing but declining. And at least to our opinion. So if every time we got a chance to talk to experts, who put a lot of times in thinking deep, we want to ask this question: how do you help yourself to expand your ability to think, Julie?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I think you should write a book on that subject. Just collect all of that because you're right. Our capacity to think is diminishing. Our ability to focus and attend to things for any length of time. I mean, we just are so now programmed to multitask and jump from thing to thing. It's really hard. So a couple of things that I know I do for myself is my thinking time tends to be earlier in the day. If
Mm,
I get up quite early, so before the rush of the day begins, I've got a little bit of that quiet time for contemplation. But the other thing that I will do is time box
mm,
thinking. So if I know I need to figure something out, I will put it on the calendar and and set a timer for 30 minutes. And
mm,
I won't allow myself and when you know there's an end point,
mm.
when you know that the buzzer will go off and you can move on to something else, there's something about that that creates more of an appetite for focusing, at least for
Mm.
myself.
Ah,
And so when I know I've got this 30 minutes, I can be heads down. I won't look at email. I won't look at my texts. I can just figure this out. There's that level of intensity that I can bring to it. I
mm,
find is much greater than if I just, let myself lollygag around all day trying to do the same thing. And then the other thing, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about this till you mentioned it, but we just came back from a vacation. We went to Africa for a couple of weeks and
mm.
got to go on safari. And before going to Africa, I created a thinking list.
Ah,
So the things that had been kind of in the back of my mind that I hadn't been able to attend to that required some creative juices, I put together a list of things to think about while I was
ah.
away. So it wasn't like heavy to-dos, I wasn't creating any deliverables, but I had to think about how I wanted to approach a few things.
Mm,
And it was interesting because in the space that we had over the course of the vacation, there were moments where I was able to come to terms with, come to conclusions about things.
mm.
And I think I had 8 things on my thinking list. I probably came back with 5 that I was able to cross off.
Wow. So first the quiet time, then the time box, and have a great the thinking list so that we can revisit it anytime, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks a lot for sharing your secret of expanding your ability to think. And so, if our audience who listen to this conversation, I hope that they can pick, things that works for you, for them from the thing that works for you, and start to examine it and experience that. Because if it works for you, it definitely will be, having values that can help them to expand their ability to think. Then come to my last question, and this is about you. All right. So we know the past, we know the present work that you do. I always enjoy knowing about the future too. Okay. So is there anything Julie is working on that is exciting and you want to share with me and the audience so we can celebrate with you in advance?
You are so sweet to ask that. Yeah, you know what's really energizing for me right now is we are just finishing up the training program that goes along with the new book, Promotions or So Yesterday. And it's been super fun to be able to, carve out the thinking time and be able to, sort of to your point earlier, create the solution that I wanted to create,
Mm.
without the restrictions of other organizations or anything. What do I think is the right thing to do here? And super excited. We've got a kind of a cool web-based case study, and so that it's been piloting really well. And so that training has me really, really energized.
I'm so happy for you. And we really admire all the works you do, all the accomplishment, and all the things that you want to create. Okay, you created already, and then all the new things that you want to create to help employees go into work happier, organization to grow stronger, and so when we go home, I think the conversation, at home, if we were going to work in a nice and happy place, we go home, conversation will be a lot more beautiful, and the generations that go for the workforce, the next generation will inherit, all the beautiful conversation about work, and they will come in so confident, so enjoying, and in good things, great things will happen in good things. Okay.
Yes, well said, well said.
Alrighty. Thanks a lot for spending your morning with us and sharing your story with our audience, Julie. I really appreciate that. I wish you and your family all the best, and I hope to see you and your family in Vietnam. And the next time it's not gonna just stop by the airport, Next time it's gonna be
Uh,
spending time in here. So my wife and I will be so happy to take you guys around town. Okay?
I would be thrilled. You have a date, my friend.
Okay, my friend. Thanks. I need to let you go now. Okay?
All right.
Have a beautiful day.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
What a pleasure too.